Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now broadcasting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles, with the president of the California Tax Limitation Committee, Mike Alexander, and America's funniest reporter, Carl Kozlowski.
All right, get my microphone arranged. Good evening, everyone. Mike Alexander here. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Radio Free Los Angeles. We invite you to call in and share our show with us. This is listener-sponsored radio, so that needs you, not only your money, but your participation.
Yeah, give us a call, 866-870-5752.
Yeah, and that cheerful voice you heard belongs to Jonathan Wilson. Jonathan Wilson and I are sharing the studio again tonight. Carl Kozlowski is out on vacation. He's in Chicago doing something. I'm not sure, but it's very interesting. He'll tell us about it when he gets back. Well, we have a very packed show here tonight. We're going to talk about a lot of different issues that that concern all of us. And we're going to lead off tonight by discussing school choice, which is our passion. We're going to talk also later about a new effort that we're launching, the California Taxpayers Union. We've got a lot to talk about that. I think everybody's going to be very interested in all of that. And it involves you, it involves me, it involves everybody. And mostly it involves getting after the people that are taking this state to ruin. We'll talk about that later. Let's talk about school choice. This is a great issue. We have spent so much time here talking about fiscal issues. And believe me, they're very, very important. The ones that affect your city, these cities that have yet to pay their bills on underfunded pensions. And we'll talk about South Pasadena later in the program, too, and the fiasco they have going down there like every other city. But school choice deals with our children. It's one of the most fundamental activities in modern America, education of our youth. It wasn't always thought to be a core responsibility of government, but certainly over the last 100 years, the schools have evolved as a primary first duty of government. Certainly educating the young is a I hesitate to use this word, collective obligation. That is the responsibility of society as a whole. Now, society can decide how to educate its youth. It can use the vehicle of government itself, or it can use government as a source of funds, using its taxing power to collect money and then make it available to students for educational purposes. This is precisely what the government does in the case of the the GI Bill, which is, a scholarship or educational benefit that is provided to members of the military upon their discharge from active duty. The GI Bill has been one of the largest and most successful government-funded educational efforts in the United States since its inauguration. I think it came up in 1945. I don't think it existed before then, but so many World War II veterans went to school on the GI Bill and continued to do so. So back to what we do with educating children. Principally, we're talking about K through 12, grammar school and high school. But what has evolved here in the United States has not been government funding of education, but the evolution of government schools that are dominated by teacher unions and by special interests, but mostly by the government itself, which is an area of greatest concern. When you have a government school, what's it going to teach? Whose perspective is it going to teach? Please don't tell me they're values neutral, because being values neutral in the classroom is simply impossible. Somehow, some way, you must present something to that student as being true, or you will be perhaps presenting one or more versions, two alternatives. Well, those two alternatives are the product of a particular point of view. In other words, government cannot possibly be neutral. And when we all think about what we have right now, we have this vast enterprise dominated by special interests and controlling the lives of 5.5 million children here in the state of California. We have 6 million children in the state of California who are of school age, K through 12. 5.5 million of them are in the public schools. And each and every day what we have is millions of students getting up in the morning in housing that is paid for by government. They may eat a breakfast if they eat at home rather than at school. They will eat breakfast at home very often with food stamps, that is, food bought by government. They will then dress themselves with clothes that were purchased perhaps with welfare money. They'll go outside, get on a government bus. They'll take that government bus on government streets to a government building called a school. They'll be escorted in there by government people, and then they will be taught there all day long what to think, how to think, what to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do, what other people should be doing and what they're not doing. They will be taught all of these things all day long by government. They will be taught from government-approved text. They will look at film strips and movies and other forms of media that are, of course, approved by government. They will participate in government-sanctioned sports. They will wear uniforms and use athletic equipment provided by government. They will eat, of course, government breakfast. They'll eat a government lunch. They'll have government-funded snacks in the day. Then at the end of the day, they'll take home those government-approved texts in a bag that was bought maybe with welfare money, and they'll head back on that bus and go home, where the cycle will begin all over again. Now, if that sounds to you like a tirade against government dependency, it's not really that. I'm describing the reality in our schools, not only here in California, but throughout the country. And the problem with that is, the main problem with it is that the government schools are the places where we are presumptively teaching the citizens of the future. And after having received all of these things from government, having introduced government as a good thing, as a great thing, or in many cases the only thing in these children's lives, these students are expected at the age of 18 to emerge into adulthood and suddenly develop the ability to independently evaluate what is being told them by government. Suddenly they're going to have perspective. Suddenly they're going to be able to put distance between them and themselves, and to see them as a government entity, to see their limitations, when nothing has ever happened in that entire 12 years. Now, bear in mind, I haven't even talked about what the curriculum might be, how often anti-American is, or what it doesn't do. We haven't even talked about the schools that massively fail at their basic mission of literacy, or of the ability to speak English for many of our young students who come here from other countries, or who are born into families where they speak a foreign language only at home. These students are deprived of the ability to speak these languages. This is what we call our public schools. They are a massive failure. But in our democracy, they're an even greater failure, because these institutions, what you learn in K through 12, lays the foundation for so many, many, many adults in our society to become citizens. And when we look around and we see how crazy the vote is, or we see people are not voting at all, we can look back to the public school system itself. They become tools, political tools. We've seen this here this past week. What I'm hearing the music. All right. This is Mike Alexander, Radio Free Los Angeles. Please join us. Jonathan, what's the number to call?
Yeah, give us a call. We want to hear from you. 866-870-5752.
Or go to radiofreelosangeles.net and click Contribute. We'll be back in a minute.
If you like what you're hearing and would like to support Radio Free Los Angeles and the California Tax Limitation Committee, please call area code 626-792-1772, 626-792-1772, or kindly visit our website, catlc.net, catlc.net. You can also watch Radio Free Los Angeles on Facebook Live at radiofreela.us.
If you'd like to talk with Radio Free Los Angeles, the phone lines are wide open. 866-870-KRLA. That's 866-870-5752. We're live, local, and here to talk with you. 866-870-KRLA.
All right, back with you here, Mike Alexander and Jonathan Wilson. Back in the second part of our half hour here tonight, and we're going to continue our discussion of school choice. You know, this is such a wonderful topic out there, and it's one that ought to generate a lot of interest among parents. And one of the things I'd like to encourage you to do is that if you think that you can do a better job educating your children, that is, taking the money that that is spent for the education of your child, if you think that you could select a better school and get a better outcome, we'd like to hear from you. If you think that government itself and these teachers and the bureaucracies are better positioned and better equipped to educate your child to undertake his or her obligations as a citizen and to become a productive, effective citizen, we'd also like to hear from you. Because the evidence that we're seeing out there is just not the same as what you're seeing. We view it very differently. And I think there are a lot of people out there who, when they hear about school choice, and I'm going to specify in a minute what the current proposal is about, but I notice that there's a lot of elitism, there's a lot of class prejudice against Latino parents and against poor parents, poor black parents, poor white parents, poor parents of all kinds. And there's a lot of us in the circles in which I move who believe that they will just make a hash of it. That as bad as the current system is, the only thing worse would be these folks making decisions about their own children. I think that's a terrible thing to say. I don't think there's any evidence for it. There's nothing in my experience that leads me to believe that these black and Latino or poor parents care less about their children than my parents cared about us, my brothers and me, or that they will be less motivated to do a good job, or that they won't be able to find schools good enough to do it for them. I think that this is a terrible form, not only of class prejudice, but out-and-out bigotry, and it's something that we have to address. And we have to believe that these students can learn, that these students can rise above their circumstances and achieve greatly. We see these results all the time, particularly with Catholic and private and charter schools in the inner city who in the past have been able to get access to the funds. Suddenly a lot of these students who don't test very well are soaring and are achieving and are going on to great schools and just becoming good, productive citizens. But, you know, you don't have to be go to a great school to be a great citizen. No, far from it. What you need to do is to acquire the skills that you need that will equip you to be a good citizen. You have to be able to read, express yourself in writing, think critically, read critically, and then acquire a skill or a profession that enables you to become a productive, law-abiding person. And for many, many people, that doesn't mean going to college or any other place. We should have trade schools and similar kinds of alternatives. We have so many youngsters who are dropping out of school right now to go into the trades with their fathers and their uncles and their cousins, because these young men, usually young men, want to become productive in society. Well, we should find ways to make sure that they're learning the things that they need to learn, getting all those skills, reading, writing, math and calculation and so forth, and these elementary issues about citizenship. I think we ought to have that and make it possible for people in our society to enter the workforce and become productive citizens. When did it happen that everybody all of a sudden was going to go to college and make something of themselves? Those two things are not the same. It doesn't automatically happen that because you go to school, you're something else or something better than you were than if you graduated from high school, went right to work. That's the way it was in this country. Both of my parents were only high school graduates. I say only high school. The high schools they went to obviously equipped them to take their places in the workplace. They ran businesses and everything else. Quite literate, quite well-spoken. My mother was my grammarian for years until I ran into Father Reedy, my English professor in high school. When I learned Latin and English, that was about the only time that I made even a marginal improvement over my mother's skills. And she was an executive secretary. Learned how to type at Madison High School in Wisconsin, and away she went. She went out to the workforce, and my father graduated from high school in Laclede, Missouri, and he knew how to read. He was an avid reader and so forth. The books and all of our experiences out there filled with them. If you have an experience like that, I'd sure like to hear from you. And of course, all of us know idiots with degrees. In fact, we elect them regularly.
Sure.
But we can hardly do worse in many cases. So, how about you, Jonathan? What was the quality of you went to public school in the Low Country in South Carolina?
No, actually, I went to private school.
Did you?
In Hilton Head, South Carolina.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was a great education. Big shout out to Hilton Head Preparatory.
Yeah. All right, good.
But I got a great education. Public schools in South Carolina are also very good.
Yeah. We are 48th in the state here. In the country. California schools, rank at the lowest, and bear in mind that they rank in this so low based upon the most friendly tests that they can concoct. This is the teaching industry itself, the public school industry itself, that comes up with all of these metrics, and these very, very easy metrics are regularly too high for them to achieve. Can you imagine how really, really bad it is in the Los Angeles Unified so-called School District? Can you imagine?
I don't know how it can get any worse.
Yeah. It's just awful.
But, this whole school choice thing that you're proposing is really exciting, Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it has the potential to change the education in this country forever.
Well, it does. And by the way, when we say I'm proposing on the show, as you know.
You're a proponent. Yeah.
Yeah, we're proponents there, and school choice has been around. Now, what is school choice? I was reminded by some people in my organization that you have to explain school choice. School choice, very simply, is your ability to choose a school where you want to send your child and then send him there. The specific initiative that has been drafted and is being considered for circulation among the citizens would have 3 or 4 key features. Number one, each year on August 1st, an educational savings account would be established for each and every student of school age K through 12 in California. That is, they'll be established initially whenever they become school age. Then every August 1st, that account will be funded with somewhere around 10 or 11,000. May go a little bit higher, might even go a little bit older. But let's just say
state funded, right? State
funded. That's correct. Same source as the state is currently using for payments to public schools.
So what you're saying is that instead of the money going to the schools,
yes,
it will be attached to the students.
Correct.
And that they will have the freedom to spend that money on whatever school they choose.
Correct. The money will follow the student, not the school or the union, the corrupt teachers union. The money will belong to the student. And, of course, the parents, as the parents or legal guardians of the children, will make the choice of institution. So that's number one. There's an educational savings account that is established, numbered for each and every child of school age in California. Number two, that account will be funded each year on August 1st with $10,000. Number three, the parents will be able to select a school of their choice to send their child to. Now, that could be a public school. It could be a charter school. It could be a private school. And then whatever that is already accredited or becomes accredited by various organizations, mostly the Western Association of Schools and Colleges or whatever they're calling it these days. But if these schools are already accredited, they can do so, and you can take that money and spend it at that school. If you have any money left over, that stays in your educational savings account, and it could be accumulated to use in later years or even used in college.
Mike, that makes way too much sense for California, I think.
It does. Yeah.
I mean, it's a no-brainer.
It is. It is. And the other key feature that you want to know is that accredited school can be a religious school. So if you're Mormon, Christian, Catholic, Lutheran, Buddhist, whatever out there, and you have a school, Hebrew schools, there are a lot of them in the Jewish community. You know, if you have one of those schools and it's an accredited school, those funds can be expended there, and the ability of the state to legislate and regulate in that area is extremely limited. So you don't have these schools, in effect, being put under the indirect management and regulation of their competition. Now,
well, also it introduced competition into the marketplace. So the quality of education is going to go through the roof.
It does. And I want you folks out there who may have considered school choice in the past, and many of us have been involved in those campaigns. I know the last time we had it here in California was in the early 90s. Well, we need to bring it on again here. But one of the things that we don't often consider, we say that education will get better, competition will make it better. How will competition make the public schools better? Well, it'll make them better in ways that you might not imagine at first. Because as you and I both know and complain about constantly, these schools have become places of political and social indoctrination. Mm-hmm. So they teach children all kinds of things that parents don't agree with, whether it be in the area of sexual ethics or politics or sexual practices, economic systems, or even to the point of using children as political props in demonstrations like we've seen here in Florida and even throughout the United States recently. They become political props. Well, these days, if you go in and you complain to the warden, otherwise known as the principal, at your school about what's being done in your name, they'll give you any number of lies, but it boils down to that you have no say in the matter, and we'll do whatever we want to do, and they can't interfere with academic freedom, or you're forced to take your complaint to the school board and be given 5 minutes to vent your spleen while they look at you with this patient hemorrhoidal look on their face, trying to and glancing at the clock the whole time that you're talking. Imagine how different that conversation is when parents go in once they have the ability to take their children elsewhere. Well, they just go in, they tell the principal or they tell the teacher, say, look, if you're going to say or teach these kinds of things, if you're going to talk and teach in an un-American fashion, if you're going to criticize religion, if you're not going to permit my children to pray in silence or to seek a blessing on their efforts before or after a football game, well, we're just going to take our kids and our money and go down the street. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just going to be a very, very different conversation, and I kind of get excited when I think about how many parents will be walking out. So we'll continue our conversation in the next part. If you'd like to have any comments or criticisms here, be sure to call us at
866-870-5752, and please visit our website and consider giving us a contribution. That web address is radiofreelosangeles.net.
See you in a minute.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now broadcasting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with the president of the California Tax Limitation Committee, Mike Alexander, and America's funniest reporter, Carl Kozlowski.
All right. Hey, we're back with you. Mike Alexander and Jonathan Wilson here, back for the second half hour. We, of course, go till 9:30 tonight and every Sunday night. And in our second half hour, we're going to continue our discussion of schools in general. And, even in private schools and all these institutions, they, too, operate without much competition. You mentioned competition in schools will get better. It's not just the public schools that will get better. All private schools will get better. There have been many of them who have survived and competed just on the basis that they were not public schools and that they just weren't as bad.
Right.
They just needed to be a little bit better, maybe a lot better than public schools, but they did not need to be great schools in and of themselves. So all schools are going to be better, and I was reminded of that last night when I went to a benefit of a school that my wife and I were involved in helping to found. It's been over 15 years now. St. Monica Academy. It's currently in Montrose. When we first founded it, it was over there on Orange Grove, right next to the Gamble House in Pasadena. And that is an independent Catholic school. And there was a market there for parents who wanted to see a certain kind of Catholic education. There's nothing wrong with the other Catholic schools. Please don't send me cards and letters or condemnations. That's not what I'm saying. But there are a lot of parents who are seeking a different kind of educational experience for their children. They wanted to be Catholic, and they found a market for that. There were students who wanted it, parents that wanted something. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't discriminate against non-Catholics. There have been a number of non-Catholic families who have gone there, but it was a whole idea of strong moral formation, of course, strong formation in religion, strong formation in character, a deep understanding of American history, a lot of performance in the arts. There was a greater emphasis on the arts, a greater emphasis perhaps than many other Catholic schools might be able to bring about because of their limited financial resources. So your point, Jonathan, about schools getting a lot better, competition making everything better, that is an understatement. I think that it'll be a renaissance in the state of California. And, there's a couple of other things I want to talk about when we get back. But we've got Brent in Los Angeles here on line 1 who would like to talk about child abuse in the schools. Terrible subject, but it's an important one. Brent, what's your comment?
Yes, well, hello, Michael and Jonathan. Thank you so much for bringing up these issues and having Radio Free California and Los Angeles. My problem with what you've been discussing is I just think you're sugarcoating it. I don't even call them schools. I just see the government propaganda institutes are places of child abuse. Mm-hmm. And they're not even teaching true science. They're not teaching values. They rip God out of the school, which means they're ripping morals and ethics out of the school, and they wonder why kids are murdering each other.
Oh, thank you. Brent, you may be the first guy ever to accuse me of sugarcoating something.
I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Right. No, but Brent.
But he's right. I think.
He's right. I was being a little more temperate in my comments on public radio here than I typically am in private, and I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. I want there to be more righteous indignation. Yes. I mean, these days with school being so bad, and since I think it is abusive,
yes,
the internet is a marvelous thing for parents. If they can't move their kids out immediately, there are so many wonderful things to expose them to. And just on top of my mind is Prager University.
Yes.
And these 5-minute videos that any children can learn tremendous amounts from.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'm going to do a whole program here one of these days. I'm looking around for some guests. If you have, we've got, of course, Dennis Prager does his university. You've got Hillsdale College. You have all kinds of resources out there. I don't think that there's any longer any case to be made for junior college as we know it. For publicly funded junior college or publicly funded colleges, I think that if a student is ambitious and wants a good general education, that student can get it with resources that are out there on the internet today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's amazing. That's what our founders had in mind. They were big proponents, the founders of America, of self-education.
Yes.
And now we have unlimited resources to educate ourselves.
Right. What university did Lincoln graduate from?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or Washington. We do. There were a number of our founding fathers who did go to the equivalent of college institutions, but the thing that is most important, of course, is for us is to get the tools that you need for education, and students should have the basic critical faculties, the ability to read, to write, to express themselves. Those should be in place and really firm by age 18. In my own case, my high school education was so strong that it, much more than the years I spent in college, formed then and forms now the foundation of all of my reading and personal education over the years.
Yes. Can I say one other thing?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
It's just, I think it's time we also tell our theologians to get off their rear ends, because our rabbis, our priests, our ministers, they haven't even the guts to tell their kids there are only 2 genders, and the 340 and a half genders. This is insanity. If they can't stand up to delusional ideas and thoughts, we're lost.
Well, that's right. Let me say something. I know tons of priests and ministers and whatnot there. I really want to say something, and this isn't disagreeing with you or anything that you said, Brent, but just a general comment, that this obligation of raising our children and seeing to it that they have the education that they need is a parental obligation. Mm-hmm. It's a right and it's a duty that belongs to families. And sitting around waiting for priests or bishops, rabbis, ministers, and above all, waiting for politicians to do the right thing is a cop-out. It's not going to work. It hasn't worked. It will not work in the future. We simply have to take the responsibility to educate our own children and to train up the next generation. And this applies with particular emphasis to all of the young Latino students. Now, these are American citizens, by and large, who are the children, the offspring of Mexican citizens. I didn't say Mexican Americans. I said Mexicans. They're foreign nationals. Well, the children that are here are Americans, and you can say what you want about illegal immigration. There's a lot to say about it critically, but the fact is these children are here, and we had better, by golly, figure out a way to educate them and make Americans out of them. And turning them over to this evil institution called the public school, government schools, and taught by, run by people who hate us, who hate America, hate religion, hate our ethics, hate families, and think the government ought to run everything, and that the kids ought to be involved. They ought to be involved in every aspect of your children's lives. If we do that, we've got no country. And we have no country right now. It's been rent asunder, and the solution is what we're talking about.
Oh,
all right.
Thank you. God bless you.
Hey, God bless you too, Brent. Thank you so much for calling in. We're coming up on a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk to Dave of Orange County. But in the meanwhile, call in, join this wonderful conversation.
Yeah, we're having a great talk tonight. Give us a call, 866-870-5752, and visit radiofreelosangeles.net.
Back right away.
If you like what you're hearing and would like to support Radio Free Los Angeles and the California Tax Limitation Committee, please call area code 626-792-1772, 626-792-1772, or kindly visit our website, catlc.net, catlc.net. You can also watch Radio Free Los Angeles on Facebook Live at radiofreela.us.
If you'd like to talk with Radio Free Los Angeles, the phone lines are wide open. 866-870-KRLA. That's 866-870-5752. We're live, local, and here to talk with you. 866-870-KRLA.
All right, back with you here. And I want to acknowledge and thank our engineer in there, the guy working the board, Sullivan. It's good to see you again tonight.
And our call screener, Brooke.
Yeah, Brooke.
She does an amazing job.
Yeah, she does. Hope she's listening in there. We can get her. Pride and flattery goes a long ways. We sure appreciate her stepping in tonight. All right, now, next up, we have Dave in Orange County who has a question or a comment about how schools will be funded and so forth. Are you there, Dave?
Hey, Mike. Yes.
Hey, great.
Yes.
Fire away.
Yes, okay. We keep hearing that many Californians are leaving. So how are we going to fund our schools with a tax base leaving? And I have a suggestion.
Okay. Well, let's start with your first things first and talk about how schools are funded here in the state of California. It's an important mechanism. There's a lot of local funding for schools, but here several years ago, almost 20, there was both an initiative and state legislation which mandated that schools would be funded statewide, and they would receive money according to population, kids. There's some other factors. But right now in California, a minimum of 45% and sometimes up to 50% of the California state budget is earmarked by our Constitution for the schools. So that funding will continue. As long as they're spending money on anything, they'll spend money on schools. And that's how it's currently done. So the state of California reroutes money back to the school districts. These school districts are also authorized to raise money in other fashions. For example, bond issues, which help them to build buildings and facilities for the schools. They also get a variety of grants from the state and federal government, and also from private foundations. So the schools are regular government businesses. They are very large enterprises, and they're very profitable enterprises for those who own and operate them. Those would be the teachers and administrators, the unions, and so forth. So that's how they're funded now, and that would continue no matter what. Now, you had a second part to your question. What was that?
Yeah. Now, to your point on the school funding,
yes.
I heard from an assemblyman's aide in his office that there was a bill passed in 88 or in 89 that says all extra money will go to the schools. Now, on that point, and what I had mentioned earlier, what my solution would be is create an environment in California where people will stay, because we're sacrificing everything else for bloated school budgets, such as the Los Angeles school budget, which in 2017 or 2016 was $17 billion, which is totally outrageous.
Right.
Now, we need to create an environment in California where businesses aren't leaving. We need to create an environment in California where the Democrats aren't creating high crime by their policy, promoting Prop 47, 57, and AB 109, which they passed.
Right.
We need to get rid of those. And here's a suggestion, folks. There is a ballot initiative being promoted by LA City Councilman Mitch Englander, and it's called the Safe Cities Act, which would get rid of most or all of, from what I understand, Prop 47, 56, and AB 109. So we really need to get behind that and get that thing on the ballot. Okay, so we need to create an environment in California where people are going to want to stay.
Hey, Dave, hang on for a second. Your point is extremely good and well taken. Now, let me offer you another vision. Tell me what you think, because I was reflecting on the same thing that you're talking about. You're talking about net immigration from California, people leaving. What do you think would happen to internal immigration from other states to California if families learned that they could come to California and get $10,000 a year per child, and put that child in a school of their choice, not of the government's? What do you think the impact of that would be?
That's excellent.
All right, good. Now, that's number one. Now we got you. There's reason to... Hey, I don't know what you're doing, man, but I'm hearing all kinds of racket. Okay.
That's a train.
Oh, it's a train. Okay. I thought maybe your wife was getting after you. But a lot of racket. So there's one reason to be positive. Reason number two to be positive is that, now you think about this California budget. It is 50%. I don't know what the current budget is, probably north of $200 billion. But that the schools piece of it is at least $70 or $80 billion. Let's make it $80 billion right now, just for discussion purposes. If we have a constitutional amendment granting school choice, the effective... Hello? Okay, I ended up with the dial tone. Oh, he did. All right. Well, in any event,
I hope he didn't get hit by that train.
I know. But anyway, hey, Brent, it was a great.
Dave.
Dave. It was a great call. Let me finish responding to you there. Two other things that happened there. Number one, the parents in the state of California now de facto control half of the state budget. Those monies get allocated by the choice of citizens who happen to be parents of children K through 12. Now, that is a revolution right there. And to get any kind of control over those things, they're going to have to do a lot to appeal to parents. Number two, when those monies, even though they're public monies, but when those monies go into private schools, that money is now being managed inside the productive private sector and not the unproductive, uncompetitive public sector. Everything gets better. In a lot of cases, the cost of education will be less than $10,000. You're going to see a lot of money saved and accumulated and either used for higher quality schools. That is, maybe you got 10, you go to a school that here in an urban area that needs 15 or 20. Well, at least you got 10 of it there, and you can make up the difference and put your kids in a better school if your circumstances permit you to do so. Or you can save up money in grammar school to accumulate that money and put it towards a better school in high school. This is dynamic. This is the law of unintended consequences, and believe me, the dark side, the public employee unions, the teachers, so-called, they know all this and they hate it all. I think we may have time for another call. I'd like to talk with Carlos, please, on line 3. Are you there, Carlos?
Yes, good evening. This school topic is a great topic.
Great.
I'm really dismayed at what I see, the kind of students that are being turned out. I think they're being pampered, and I think that the schools are complicit.
You mean the children are being pampered?
Yeah, I think they're being pampered. I think there's an emphasis on making them feel privileged.
Right.
I mean, you cannot impose discipline anymore.
Right.
They're taking the right of the parents to discipline their children, and I think the schools are somewhat responsible. I know the influence comes from the government,
right?
But it's having a deplorable, deleterious effect on kids that they feel that you cannot admonish them. You know,
right?
I talked to several teachers, and they say that one of their problems is the discipline with the kids. They can't discipline them.
Yes, Hey, Carlos. Carlos,
yes.
Let's tackle that one issue. First of all, you are 100% right. You think just like my parents thought. You think just like my wife and I thought when it came to all these things. And yes, they are coddling the children, but these school teachers get away with murder because they participate in a system which guarantees that they can't discipline, and then they can claim that their hands are tied. You see what I mean? The teachers never in that school system point the finger at each other, never really take responsibility for the outcome, and yet you don't have control of your money to take those kids out and put them into a school where they will get the kind of structure and, if necessary, discipline that they need to continue. Right, and the fact is, a kid can sit there and blow off the teacher, blow off the principal, and blow the parents off. Right, he just sits there, she sits there all day long, do what the hell they want to, and then you've got to deal with the results when they get home. No, it's totally with you, Carlos. Do you have children in the system right now, or are your children raised now?
No, I'm not. They're out of school. My children turned out pretty good, but what I see in other children, this child abuse syndrome has gone a little too far. You can't spank your kid. How are they going to learn any limits?
I'm with you. I assure you, my 4 sons knew their limits and discovered them. Isn't this adolescence a voyage of discovery? Right. Hey, Carlos, quick question. We got to go here in just a minute. If this program had existed when you were raising your children, putting them through school, would you have used this money to take them out of that school and put them into another school, a private school?
Yes, definitely. I'm a product of the Catholic system schools. And I think my son, if he probably would have been better off in Catholic school. Or, well, in general, I think kids would be better off in private school.
Sure.
Well, my son, of course, he always did pretty good. He was a very obedient kid. I mean, he's an exception.
Right.
But
a
lot of kids are very unruly.
That's right.
Child abuse thing is they've been influenced by this child abuse thing. And
right.
They can do anything.
That's
They're
right.
entitled to whatever. They're entitled to cell phones. They're entitled to
right.
cars. They're entitled to Uber rides to school if it's only 2 blocks away.
Right.
If they don't get it, they call it child abuse.
I know. My old man would given him a lesson, child abuse. He'd have bounced that cell phone off my head. Yeah, no, we paid attention. Did you go to school here in the Los Angeles area or someplace else?
Yes, I went to Cathedral High School.
Cathedral High, all right. Oh, it's a very well-known school. Absolutely. That's fantastic. Well, Carlos, we got 1 minute. I sure want to thank you for calling in. Don't be a stranger. We're going to be talking this. Go to radiofreelosangeles.net and check in there. Or send an email to hq@catlc.net. And we'll get connected here on this project.
And give us a call. We're having a great conversation. 866-870-5752.
You got it.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now broadcasting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles, with the president of the California Tax Limitation Committee, Mike Alexander, and America's funniest reporter, Carl Kozlowski.
All right. Mike Alexander back with you again here with Jonathan Wilson. And our Carl Kozlowski is still in Chicago and will rejoin us next week. We had a pretty good first hour here where our subject...
Wow, great calls.
Fantastic calls. And what I noticed was it was mostly men.
Or all men.
All men. I'm sorry.
Not mostly. It was all men.
I stand corrected. All right. It's Sunday night's late. It's great to hear from men about the education of their children, the condition of the system, and the level of indoctrination that goes on there. They're just great people. And you gentlemen who called us in, please make sure to send us a note with your contact information, or at least just your email and telephone number, because we'd like to make sure that you're on our distribution list. And any of you out there in Radio Land that are listening to this would like to make sure that you get our follow-up podcast. Sometimes you can't listen on Sunday night, or you can't listen to all of it. Well, if you will go to hq@catlc.net, or just call in here to the show and give us your contact information, we'll put you on the list.
And also a reminder that the podcast is posted Monday. Every Monday we post the podcast on radiofreelosangeles.net. So if you missed the show, you can always visit our website on Monday and listen to it at your convenience.
Right. And, of course, what Jonathan does religiously every Monday is he sends out a bulk email with that link embedded right there. So you don't even have to remember a website. Just click on that link. It'll take you right there.
And that way you can forward it to your friends.
Right.
Send it to your whole email list.
Right.
You can't really forward a live broadcast to friends.
Right. And we have the archive of past broadcasts, do we not?
Right. And all of our broadcasts are right on that page, radiofreelosangeles.net. And one of the most important parts of that page is the Contribute Now button.
Well said.
And I just put up, you can sign up on radiofreelosangeles.net for a recurring subscription. So that would be a monthly. We've got $20 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month, or if you're a real enthusiast, $250 a month.
Right.
So we make it easy for you to contribute to us.
We sure do. And we have to remember that this is listener-sponsored talk radio here in Los Angeles, and this is where conservatives can come together, or anybody else. So you don't have to be particularly conservative, but you could share our concerns about the public schools. you can share our concerns about public finance as it relates to the pension problem. And bear in mind, these schools have huge pension problems too. The amount of money that we're putting into the so-called school system it is not all of it. It runs on deficit financing because it has not fully funded their own teacher pensions. In other words, they owe these teachers more money than they have paid them, and the California State Teachers Retirement System, otherwise known as CalSTRS, is underwater several $100 million as well. And as we get into more detail into these school districts here, and we expose how they operate, how they're funded, especially the bond hustle that goes on in school districts all over the state, we think that you're going to be shocked at what we're doing and the kinds of money that we're going to save by going over to school choice and a system of educational savings accounts is absolutely amazing. And for all of you out there wondering, say, how in the world did it ever get to this point? What happened? I have occasion to go to various think tanks, like and meet a lot of people, a lot of politicians, a lot of scholars, a lot of very, very concerned citizens, and everybody has their own view as to how this country got into its position. They will talk about the collapse of the culture. They'll talk about the dominance of the mainstream media. They will talk about the corrupt bureaucracy, the administrative state. They always, of course, would like to talk about the behavior of particular politicians and particular parties. The Democrat Party comes up for special abuse by conservatives, but believe me, the Republican Party is in on the same scam right along with the Democrats half the time. All of these things are very important. And, of course, you have the public school system itself, the academia, starting in kindergarten and going right up into postgraduate school, where very liberal, very statist, a very collectivist, communist even, view of the world is systematically taught. And so all of these things are often blamed for our current malaise and the predicament in which we find ourselves. And all of these factors, in fact, just my recitation of these different factors may have been enough to depress you and discourage you right then and there, thinking, oh my gosh, how in the world do we overcome academia, the public school monopoly? How do we overcome the media and all these entrenched politicians and so forth? What do we do? How do we take the culture back and other such things? Now, I want you to pay very close attention to me and what I'm saying, because this is the ultimate reality about our current political problems. We didn't get there by accident. We got there by a plan, but it wasn't the kind of fifth column plan that you imagine, a communist conspiracy. That is a real one, not the phony one that Mueller's investigating, but a real communist fifth column conspiracy. It isn't guys like Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders and everybody that works with him. It wasn't just the plan per se. The reality is that there's this vast enterprise called government. It is a business, and that business is owned and operated by the employees and the administrators and the people who profit from its operation. Period. It's no different than any other business. I started talking to you about this the last couple of weeks here. I'm going to keep coming back to it until we have more clarity on the subject. Government is a business for them. They want to grow it. And everybody that's involved in that business is responsible for growing that business. Just like here at this radio station, just like at my firm, just like at your business, in your corporations or professional practices. You're there to grow that business. Even a hospital is there to attract more patients, more doctors who will come and practice medicine with you and deliver needed medical services to the public. Everybody grows that business, but for some reason or another, conservatives and the average citizen have a lot of trouble seeing that system for what it is. And they do something else. They're not just a business, but they do what businesses always do. They actually invest in their future. And when we come back after this break, I'll be gone for a minute, I'm going to focus in more detail how that investment works, how it affects you, and most importantly, what we can do about it. Be sure to call in, join this conversation. We'd love to hear your comments, even if you want to go back to something we're not talking about right now.
866-870-5752.
If you like what you're hearing and would like to support Radio Free Los Angeles and the California Tax Limitation Committee, please call area code 626-792-1772, 626-792-1772, or kindly visit our website, catlc.net, catlc.net. You can also watch Radio Free Los Angeles on Facebook Live at radiofreela.us.
If you'd like to talk with Radio Free Los Angeles, the phone lines are wide open. 866-870-KRLA. That's 866-870-5752. We're live, local, and here to talk with you. 866-870-KRLA.
All right, Mike Alexander back with you. Radio Free Los Angeles. Hey, you can't believe how some of the libs on the other side hate the title of our program, and we have a lot of conservatives who get a chuckle out of it. I'll admit that it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but when you hear some of these flakes out there talking, you got to think that we are behind the Iron Curtain sometimes.
Yeah, I think we're doing a pretty good job of tweaking them, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
I tell you, we really tweaked Sierra Madre pretty good.
Oh, it's fun, and I still haven't heard from them about keeping 2 sets of books. We'll get back to that. Let me continue my discussion in the last part of this show here. We'll get to our Government Grifter of the Week segment, which is really popular. I get probably more comments on that than anything else. But I want to go back to how it is that we got into our situation. And if we don't understand how we got there, we won't understand how to get out of it, and we'll end up doing a lot of the wrong things. All right, so how do we get there? It's very simple. They have 1.8 million federal, state, and local employees in the state of California who pay dues, and a large portion of those dues, if not all of them, are ultimately available for political purposes, and a huge chunk of them are actually used for political purposes. They're called union dues. And when public employees sign up in a union or a bargaining unit, whatever it happens to be, and they pay their dues, those dues are going to be used to elect candidates and to pass legislation that grows government. What do I mean when I say grow government? It's going to raise taxes. It's going to enlarge this thing called government. There'll be more code enforcement, more meter-maid Nazis. All of these people, a whole battalion of government predators spread out across the land to torment us and make our lives impossible. Reduced to a phrase, ladies and gentlemen, they write checks and we don't. They write checks and we don't. Every school teacher in this state who belongs to the California Teachers Association writes a check for $1,000 a year. That's $20 a week. Every week, no matter what, whether she's broke, behind on her car payment, can't do her hair, whatever it may be, she will pay that $20 a week automatically. And with rare exception out there in this audience, you don't. And our secret is to reverse that process. It is not to be discouraged. It is not to be overwhelmed with this fact. You can solve this problem by writing a check, $20 a week, $1,000 a year comes to $83.33 a month. You can take America back on the installment plan just like they took it over to start with. It's really no more complex than that. They write checks, and you are not writing a check for $20 a week to an organization that knows what to do with it and actually gets results. That, of course, would be our organization.
And we're starting a new union, right?
We are.
A lot of folks might be surprised that we're now union guys.
That's right. You might say the anti-union.
That's right.
But in any event, here within the next several days, we will be launching a new organization, which will be a consolidation of our existing operations and other things, called the California Taxpayers Union. And our goal is to build a counterforce. Our goal is to help you do your job as a citizen, and that is invest in doing what we need to do to reverse this mess that we have here in California. So it isn't just, all these policy suggestions that we get. For example, Dave in Orange County said, hey, look, we've got to do things to make California more inviting and more competitive. Well, how in the world are we going to actually do those things when we have no way to affect the politicians? Well, and by the way, that's not to argue with your point, Dave. You're quite correct. We do have to do these things. The question is, how are we going to do them? We've struggled with that, and believe me, all they're going to understand is your contribution. So if over on the other side they're contributing $20 a week and you're not, you're the problem. Your failure to contribute $20 in a constructive way to somebody who knows what they're going to do with that money, your failure to contribute that $20 basically meant that there's $20 that they don't have to spend to offset your vote. They don't have to spend $20 to offset what will be done with your $20 bill. It's as simple as that. Please don't tell me that we have to take back the culture or sit around and go to think tanks or listen to talk radio. That's just wrong. And I tell you, after having been at this so many, many years, I can't tell you just how wrong it is. And yet, when we get together and we turn around and we start putting money and effort in results and organization into opposing them, it is astonishing what kind of results we can get, mostly because the enemy is just not used to having any opposition. They're used to Republicans crying and weeping and acting like little girls in the face of this kind of aggression. And that may be a slur on the courage of little girls. I tell you, they're just used to slinking off and apologizing for even thinking about our rights. We're going to talk a lot more about that in the future, but I can tell you this, there's no way that we're going to get to where we need to go if we continue not to respond to what they've done and how they do it. And the only answer is the California Taxpayers Union. You're going to have to join it. You're going to have to contribute.
Well, I think folks are starting to wake up, don't you, Mike?
I do.
We are getting more and more monthly contributors, not huge amounts yet, but I sense that it's coming.
Right. And I think what's most important, a lot of people have contributed to various campaigns and efforts, but there's the sense that it won't work and won't make any difference. Well, I can promise you that the two major initiatives that we're talking about, plus direct attacks that we've carried out on big spenders in small cities, that is repeal the utility user tax. These attacks are very efficient, they're very effective, and they're raising the issues that we've been raising. And I can tell you now that 10 years after we started all of this, even the California League of Cities is starting to admit that their pension system is unsustainable. Even the publication like the Los Angeles Times has become a leader in exposing this problem. Now, we're not going to argue for a moment that we're the ones that made all this happen. No, events made this happen. We've been calling attention to this for years, and I'll tell you, 10 years ago, somebody might you'd be lucky to find anybody who ever thought that we could end this system, pension system, or have any impact on it. And 9 years later, we're talking about massive bankruptcies throughout the state of California. But anyway, more about that in the future. Jonathan's putting together a new website on that right now. We're very excited about it. And as we launch it, we'd love to hear more from you. How much time do I have here before our next break? Okay, great. Well, then we've got 5. We want to do. It's now time for our Government Grifter of the Week. Music, please, maestro.
And now, live from Glendale, California, it's this week's Government Grifter Award. And the nominees this week, Mike, come from our neighbors to the south.
Yes.
South Pasadena.
Oh, yes.
Good old South Pasadena.
Yeah. Mayberry, 913-1031.
All-American town.
All right, listen up.
We've got some good ones.
All right.
Okay, our first nominee is Maintenance Worker 2.
Yeah.
Maintenance Worker 2 in 2016 in South Pasadena. Total pay and benefits of $104,401.
Wow.
For a maintenance worker.
What the hell does he maintain? Mostly his salary and benefits. All
right. Nominee number 2.
Uh-huh.
The pump operator. Making, in 2016, total pay and benefits $91,307.
Man, oh
for
man.
a pump operator.
Pump operator.
Okay, and our third nominee is the senior librarian, or one of 2 senior librarians. Total pay and benefits in 2016, $95,439.
Well,
for a librarian.
I mean,
there's a lot of good ones on here. Do you want to add one?
There are. I mean, how about get this down there? These titles that they claim for themselves: the director of library arts and culture. Don't you know? 152 large. $152,547 in a community presumably comprised of an excessive number of college graduates and PhDs and you name it, doctors, the whole thing. But, we've got somebody down there that takes $150,000 to keep his culture down there. It's a librarian.
They just have one library in South Pass?
You want another one?
No, it's just amazing to me that you have 2 senior librarians making over $90,000 a year.
Yeah.
And then you have the director of library making $152,000 a year.
I'll bet you the whole facility isn't more than 7,500 square feet.
That is remarkable.
I know. But
that doesn't even include support staff.
That's right. All right. Now.
All right. Well,
okay, drum roll.
The envelope, please.
Envelope, please. All right. We have our winner.
Oh, this is a surprise. This week's winner of the Government Grifter Award goes to the Director of Library, Arts, and Culture. Congratulations, Director of Library, Arts, and Culture.
That's right.
This is Director of Library, Arts, and Culture's first nominee and first Grifter Award.
Absolutely. Hey, you got a career ahead of you. And maybe while you're down there going through that library, you can figure out how we're going to pay your pension. All right? If you're so smart down there, lady, I assume you are a lady or a guy, whatever you do, whatever you call yourself, whichever way you roll, why don't you do some research down there and tell us all how we're going to pay off these pensions, including yours, because I'm telling you, you're broke. And this just, what have we got, 1 minute here? Got 2 minutes here. We always go through these Government Grifter of the Weeks reports, not so much to ridicule them, which is great fun. But really to get to the bottom of these issues and illustrate why South Pasadena is a city with a population of just under 26,000. You got about 10,400 households down there. This city here in 2017 had total revenues of $48.7 million, almost $50 million. The general fund revenues alone were $26. Now, the total revenues for the city of South Pasadena were up by 53% over 2009. So in 8 short years, this budget is up 53%. But that's assuming that in total expenditures, which include their grants and a few other things, we're overall up 71% in 8 years, 8 or 9 years. This is a huge problem, and you would think with that kind of cash flow, they'd actually be paying their bills, but they're not. The fact is that they owe CalPERS almost $27 million based upon CalPERS phony numbers, but the real number that they're undervalued, may be as much as $100 million down there. Only 25,000 people. I think if you go from north to south on Fair Oaks, you may have 4 stoplights, and that runs about $10 million a piece or 20, something like that, in pension debt. It's absolutely outrageous, folks. It was a great evening. Thanks everyone who called in to make the show what it is. Jonathan, thank you for being with me here again tonight,
Mike. Every Sunday.
And Brooke and Sullivan, thank you so much for helping us. This is Mike Alexander signing off. Radio Free Los Angeles. Go to radiofreelosangeles.net. Contribute. Let us know who you are, and we'll see you next week.